As you can see, we're recording this meeting so that after this is finished, it will be live on our website for you to view at any time. If you're just logging in, we'd love for you to say hi in the chat. Utilize the chat and the question and answer box so that we know who's here, and if you have questions or if you really like something, be sure to let us know by chatting with us. It's fun seeing where everybody is from around the country, because obviously we can't all be in person like we wish we were at the showcase, but next best thing is hearing and seeing you here. We have Tennessee and Kansas and New Hampshire. We have Ohio, Missouri, Minneapolis. This is awesome. So as people are still kind of logging on, I'm just going to go ahead and do a little bit of an intro. But my name is Shelly Reynolds, and I'm super excited that you're here this afternoon. Every year for the last 3 or 4 years, we've been meeting in Kansas City to do our showcase, and since we weren't able to do it in person, we have been doing these virtual showcase lives once a month. And so that's, if you're new to this, that's what you're here attending. I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview of kind of how we've organized the showcase this year. Every Friday, we drop what we call a Friday feature, and so many of our breakout speakers were kind enough to videotape themselves in about a 5 to 10 minute video about what they were going to share during their breakout had we met in person, and those are on our website. Those can also be accessed using Facebook, and if you view those and then you give us feedback or make comments or have questions or reflections using Flipgrid, we will send you a Charting the Life course gift, because as many of you know, when you come to our showcase, we often give you lots of fun different stickers and notepads and different things. So that's our way of really interacting with you. All of those are archived on our website, so if you're wanting to share those with your families or the people you support or with your staff, they are there for you to use anytime and will not go away. And then you see on the left-hand side, we've been doing monthly live sessions. So if this is your first session, know that you can go back into June, July, and August and check those out as well. Those are archived by months, and so we categorize the spotlight sessions with the monthly live session, and then you can watch them anytime, or you can obviously attend these live in person. So in September, we're working on staff development and team building and how organizations across the country have utilized LifeCourse for that. And then in October and November, we're looking at how LifeCourse is being used for transitioning to adulthood and employment, and in how we are supporting and empowering families and self-advocates. We would not be able to do this without our sponsors, and so we have sponsors of our entire showcase, and so Aetna, Therap, Quillo, Sonderbloom, StationMD, and IPMG are sponsors of our event. And then we also have one focus sponsor per month. And so in just a few minutes, I'll introduce you to Quillo, who is our sponsor for this month. If you're new to Charting the Life course, just want to kind of give you a little bit of an overview. About 10 years ago, we really started working with people in the state of Missouri and across the country to really, we didn't know we were setting out to do this, but what evolved was a framework that really drives the way we think about, problem solve, explore, and plan with really anybody for any reason. And so this framework is being used, and it has a set of icons and language and tools to really support the integration and implementation into practice. The other thing that I really like about LifeCourse is that it's become this national network, and this way to meet like valued people and share stories and ideas to really figure out how can we create a good life for all people. We focus on transformation at all levels. So some of you are here because maybe you're a family member or maybe you're a professional. Others of you are here because maybe you're a systems change leader or you're a community member. And so you're learning about how to apply the life course in terms of the roles that you're in. We hope that no matter what role you're in, that you can use the life course to explore possibilities, share ideas and hopes, set higher expectations, navigate a future for yourself, your organizations, or systems and policy change. We hope it provides tools for advocating, problem solving, and planning. And that's what we're seeing across the country. And that's what I love about the showcase, is hearing from you guys on how you're integrating and implementing life course. As you know, the tools are designed to be used by an individual, by families, and with professionals. And so there's many different ways and many different ideas that you're going to learn about today. But let's go ahead and get started with our session today. Today, we are specifically focusing on integrating it at that organizational level. How are direct support professionals, how are case managers, how are organizations and program directors and program leaders integrating this in everything they do. Sharon Spurlock from St. Louis, Angie Bartell from Kansas, Kayla McCollum and Rebecca Auberry from Missouri, and Kim Buckman as well from Missouri. Going to share with you their sort of journey with their organizations. But before I do that, I'd like to turn it over to our sponsors, John Dickerson, who I met a couple years ago and have had the privilege of really working with and thinking through how LifeCourse can really support the effort that he's working on. John?
Well, Shelley, thank you so much. It's exciting to be with you here today, and we're very proud to be a sponsor and also a technology partner with LifeCourse. I began my work with the ARC in 1973 in South Dakota, and over this 7 years, I have seen very little that has been as exciting as charting the life course and developing a way to assist people with planning their lives. Today's goal fits right into the wheelhouse of Quillo because we are all about how do we expand and improve the work experience for our staff. You know, stories are powerful. You may have heard the quote from Patty Dye that the shortest distance between two people is a story. Think back to the last time somebody you support shared a success story with you, and how did it make you feel? Now, too often, we spend much of our time working on problems. And as one staff member said to me, they hear more about coverage and compliance than about success stories. I started Quillo to change that work experience and focus on relationships. Quillo is a mobile app designed to engage, inspire, and educate people through micro-learning, short 60-second stories that come to them every day, from us and from the agency themselves. Messages designed to improve the relationships and help people grow and develop. Was excited as we look at LifeCourse and the ability LifeCourse has to apply to the lives of our staff. Instead of just talking to them about compliance and coverage, what is their personal trajectory? Where do they want to go? Where do they see meaning? Where do they need acknowledgement and support? LifeCourse applied to our staff can dynamically and fundamentally change that relationship and improve it. And Quillo is excited to be part of that, especially now as we work with the folks at UMKC on developing Quillo Connect, a version of Quillo aimed at families and individuals with disabilities to help them raise their expectations. LifeCourse is such a dynamic tool. We're proud to be with her today, and having met some of the speakers you have ahead of you, I want to stop talking and just say thank you to all for being part of this community and part of this network, and to Shelley and her team for building it.
Thank you, John, and thank you, Quillo, for your support. We're excited about working with you. So to get us started today, is just to give you a quick overview of how our time is going to go. We are going to have 4 different presenters share about a 10-minute overview of some of the specific ways they've integrated this at different levels. Our first presenter is focusing on the role of how she integrated it and working specifically with individuals with disabilities to really empower them to have a voice. Our second speaker will move into how our agency used it at the program level, and we'll move in then to how we utilized, how Untitled LifeCourse was utilized for an organization that provides support coordination and some other services. After we do the 10-minute overview from each one of them, then I'm going to open it up to questions and questions, and I'll set it up panel style and ask them several questions. But as I'm asking them questions, we want you to ask them questions in the question and answer box. So open that up and you know, give your reflections, your feedback as they're speaking. What do you like? What do you have questions about? What do you want to hear more about? So with that, I'm going to have Angie Bartel turn her camera on and share with us how she has been integrating LifeCourse into her day-to-day work.
All right. Hi, good afternoon. All right, we're going to get started and just talking about, as Shelley mentioned, how we use LifeCourse with individuals directly and as a direct support tool. Just using LifeCourse as a frame in which to provide everyday support at the DSP level, and how beneficial that's become to the individuals, and how the individuals ended up becoming independent with the concepts of charting the LifeCourse. And our first, we did a lot of interactive learning. We did a lot of hands-on activities that didn't always necessarily look like the tools. We didn't use the word trajectory. We didn't use the word supported star. And I'll kind of get into that in a little more detail, but we kind of broke that down into really concrete hands-on activities, just really getting those concepts and starting to get everyone familiar with the verbiage that's used about choices and independence and and we did start introducing trajectory and what that would look like, and different supports, and kind of like what a community support would look like, what personal strength looks like, and break down all those sections in really concrete ways. So we adapted the materials as needed. We did a lot of different things with we made the tools look different. We made everything look kind of individualized to how everybody needed to learn. And we'll kind of have some examples of that also as we go forward. So we'll go through. The first thing we set up was every individual had a Charting a LifeCourse notebook, and they had access to this at all times. They were able to keep tools in there. They were able to keep other hands-on activities in there that they wanted. Just kind of kept it open, and they're very individualized. Nobody's notebook looked the same. They all had access to materials at all times, which is another point we'll go over. They were organized, so we did it by the color in the binder. So we had the key up here on the wall, which was like the one-page profile was behind the red binder. If they needed more of those, it was in a red tray. Trajectories was behind the yellow tab, and if they needed more trajectories, they were in the tray under the yellow. This was out at all times. Everyone had access to these at all times. They really, not only did we find creative ways to use it, but the individuals just took it and ran with it and started, once the concepts were there, they started using it in really unique ways that we had never thought of, that we never would have thought of, which was really cool to see, and just how they needed to process information on a daily basis. One thing I will say real quick is, even though we had the notebooks, we did not have like we're going to sit down and chart the LifeCourse time. This was just something that was very open-ended that they had access to. It was another tool in itself that they could have access to. Because LifeCourse framework was used all day. It was just the lens in which we provided support. So this is an example of some different ways we kind of adapted the star. We blew a star up to make it larger. We put Post-it notes on this at one time. We had a star we cut up and did each section differently. We really used the star as a problem-solving support, just for small things in their life. We would really break that down. And it was really where individuals would say, I got to star this out. I got to star that. Oh man, I got a problem. I got to star this out. And they started doing this independently. We created a data collection system in which we track the independence with Charting the Life course, just concepts and materials, where we had gone from a teaching phase to a prompted phase to an independent phase. So we had data collected on that whenever it became an independent thing, and just kind of tracking those kinds of trends. The direct support used it just in all kinds of ways, instead of in redirection and behavior management and any kind of planning, just for how are we going to get to lunch? Is there a problem with getting to lunch? Let's kind of think about that. And like, we provided support through that lens in all different kinds of ways. Something very simple and small, something very big is our person-centered plan, and getting those things done. This is an example of how we kind of like broke down to those concepts into like concrete examples. It doesn't always have to look like a life course. It doesn't always have to look like a trajectory or a star. We did this when we were starting to teach about choice. We had all these choices, icons, and this changed depending on what individual group we were presenting to. Something that was applicable to their life. They picked out a steering wheel. We had lots of different steering wheels, because really that concept of driving the car and who's in charge of the car when they're driving is the driver. And so this very concrete. If it was a choice, we had them look at the icon. If it was a activity that they had control over, that they felt like they were driving in their life, they glued it on the steering wheel. If it was an activity they felt like they couldn't control, they glued it on the paper outside the steering wheel. This was really eye-opening to see what they really knew, what they had choice about in their life, or what they wanted choice about, and also started those conversations. And then we could take it a step further, and then we could introduce a trajectory. Take those same icons. Sometimes we peeled it right off the steering wheel and put them onto our visions of our good life, or what we don't want. Like we've done that. We've done it every different way. And then we could get into those more specifics and break those things down. Even take it that step further, like, so their vision of a good life is to have a schedule. How do we come up with a schedule? So then we might move that over to the star. Then we might do another hands-on activity about scheduling. We used Lego blocks, Duplo blocks for schedule building, and kind of like what you want your day to look like. Again, doesn't look like Charting the Life course proper, but it was so the concepts of it. And then the most important piece, of course, is how this all translated into these person-centered plans and how it was useful in their life. How it really changed their life overall. And they would take their binder, they would go through their binder, they would see what supports, what information they thought be beneficial, what they wanted to talk about at their meeting. Sometimes they would create new trajectories. Sometimes they would create new stars. Sometimes it was already in there. Sometimes they wanted to take the whole notebook. Sometimes they just wanted to pull some pages out. We had individuals that wanted to put the pages into a PowerPoint and lead their meeting. Again, very individualized, but they were in charge of it, and they had the material that they had thought about. What I really thought was so beneficial is sometimes with person-centered planning, it's about what they want right then, like what they want. You go have that conversation and it's kind of like right there. With the notebooks and the information that had been collected throughout that whole time, it really was representative of their entire year, of their entire experience, and maybe something that was really important to them 3 months ago that maybe isn't at the forefront of their mind when their person-centered plan comes up. It's right there in their notebook, and it reminded them. And it provided those supports. They were able to lead their own meetings and start those conversations and have that communication. One great way, and I think of everything in terms of Charting the Life course, because I can't make my brain work a different way, was staff, we use it in our own lives. It really, really reinforced that core belief that it's for all people, all of us, that it wasn't something we were just telling individuals to do. This is really cool, you do it. We're like, hey, I plan my morning like this. Hey, I planned out my kid going to college like this. They love, and they were like, you really do this? Yeah, because it's great stuff and it helps us plan. And then they would maybe find something they identified with. We used our personal experiences all the time on if we were moving or we had some major change in our life, that we would show them how we could just plan. And we were very open with them. And it really was powerful to them to see that it wasn't just something we wanted them to do. Just like, you go do your person-centered plan now. It's not like that. It's for all people. And it's just amazing.
So Angie, we have a few more minutes. I'm going to flip to some of your examples, if you don't mind
Sure.
sharing some of those quickly. So I apologize. I'm going to have to flip to the end of the slide deck. So it's going to go fast for a lot of people. So just sit tight. There's got to be a faster way to do this. Oh, so I flipped too far.
Okay.
So do you want to give us so here's some of the STAR examples that you provided.
Yes, so kind of like I was mentioning that everything was different and adaptable and individualized. This was one about professional dress. We worked a lot in career development and employment, community employment. And this was, after they really got the concept of what a professional dress outfit would look like, we really used the STAR to break down how to obtain those things, because that's the next step. That's really the barrier. For this example, we used pictures and showed, and what was really, I thought, eye-opening, even I used this example when I was teaching Charting the Life course to staff, was that pants, for example, are in every area of the STAR. It doesn't just have to go in one area. It really takes all those supports to get your dress pants there. And so it was really powerful even for staff to see, like, oh my gosh, like one item can go in all these different areas of support. So this was a great example, not only that our individuals really grasped the concept, but also that staff really got it when they were teaching and be able to move on. Another example was we had potlucks, something they were in control over. They had choice. They completely planned it. Again, that planning, great, worked out great. Getting the item to the agency was another barrier. This particular individual, we had about 3 different potlucks over a course of 2 years. He always struggled getting his item there. And so he really was like, then he was like, I got to put this on the STAR. When we broke that down, the barrier was that he had several siblings at home and they were eating his food before he could get it there. And so when we were able to break that down and find where that barrier was, which we had no idea, we would have never known it. He found it using the STAR. And he's like, I have to hide my bagels from my brothers and sisters because they eat my food. And then he did that. He took this STAR home. He planned it out. He worked his plan. He got his bagels there and he was so proud. And he was so proud that he got to work the next day. He went and opened his binder and he was telling his coworkers about all the steps he had gone through and where he hid the bagels, and just processed it again about how it really worked and what those steps look like for him. So just a great example of finding those. Sometimes it's something that small, but using these concepts, you can find that and overcome them and come up with solutions.
Awesome. Thank you, Angie.
Welcome. Thank you.
So we will invite Angie back later for some more questions and to share some more examples. But we really I appreciate her starting with giving us really how you can use this to really help give a voice to the people that we're supporting and help them problem solve and plan and make the decisions about what's important to them in their own life. So our next presenter is Sharon Spurlock from the St. Louis ARC, and she's going to share with us the different ways that they've been organizing and implementing this and exploring this within their own organization. So Sharon, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Thank you, Shelley. Yes, it was wonderful to hear Angie, and I just have so many ideas from what she said. I'm going to try and hunker down and talk about my stuff. My situation, I think, is a little bit different in that I work for a large organization. We provide services to several thousand people in a lot of different contexts across the lifespan. And my role is in supporting families. So my sphere of influence was not as broad as I wanted it to be. I found out about LifeCourse and was super excited about it and came back and really wanted to make sure that we were taking advantage of all the opportunities to really dig into the principles and to use the tools. And so after I had my aha moment, I came back and really just started talking about it all the time. And, you know, my first tip would be look for the low-hanging fruit. There were certain people that got it right away and got excited with me. And so one example is somebody from our marketing department who started using the life stages to mark out what kind of services that we offered, so that now on our webpage, everything is organized by life stage. So you can really see how it's starting to be visible to people outside of my specific service delivery area. I found out there were people in our training department that were really interested in it. And training is a great place to be able to start introducing concepts and tools to the employees. Again, like Angie said, they used them for themselves. And our model of training is often to introduce a new concept, have the staff person apply it to themselves, and then have them think about somebody that they're supporting and apply it to them. So we started to embed trajectories, stars, other tools into training activities that were mandatory for staff so that it would be there for them. And I really just used every opportunity I could to introduce the tools and then look for those people who were excited about it. Family support groups were obvious opportunities for me to introduce these concepts, practice the activities, encourage people to take them back, use them with their family members. Teams would let me come in and visit with them occasionally. Two teams I had a lot of success with was one of our summer programs for teenagers that let me come in and start working with the teens on their portfolios every week during a summer program. And so the teenagers and their staff partners spent a 6 to 8 week period building a portfolio and learning some skills. And that was a real exciting time for me because one of the young adults took her portfolio home, and then I had a great conversation with her mother who'd been using LifeCourse tools, and mom realized that her daughter had things to say that she didn't know about. Shelley, you can go to the next slide. This is one of the teenagers from one of our programs who did one of my monthly tips and tools videos, which we started putting out on our website, where I was able to give some really concrete examples of how to use the tools. And really for me, this was a big use of the all concept, making sure we were putting this on YouTube where anybody could see it and learn from it and decide to engage. This was really important. As I continued to promote, we kind of got stuck. And I meant to put out a graphic. I hope you've all seen the graphic where there's the path that you think you're going to go on and the path you really go on that involves detours and drop-offs and everything else. This was not a straight path for us. There was lots of setbacks and lots of plateaus, and we had a particularly long plateau where I felt frustrated and wasn't sure where we were going. And honestly, I realized in retrospect, it was because I was really trying to control where we were going, and I kept talking about LifeCourse tools. And I really enjoyed what Angie said about not being so focused on the way we do LifeCourse, because I think people stopped hearing me. So I reintroduced Shelley's introductory video to our executive management team. And I sat back and said, how do you all envision this playing out in your departments, working with the people that you are serving? And I sat quietly, which, if you know me, is not my normal way of interacting. It was very difficult for me to wait because they could have said, we're not interested. But I was fortunate. I think the tools and the principles speak for themselves. Everybody got really excited. Everybody kind of created their own plan for how they wanted to use it. In addition, they realized that this is something we wanted to commit to as an agency so that we would have these common principles, we would have this common vocabulary. So that opened up sort of the next piece for us. We built money into our budget to do an ambassador series within our organization. And we tapped people from all different areas. We had direct support staff from our residential program. We had our HR director. So there were about 14 of us that are now a cohort that work together to move LifeCourse forward. And you can see that in so many ways. I wanted to share you this document with you. This is one of the forms we use as an organization to determine whether to move forward with new program development. And this is kind of hard to see on here, but you can see that as part of our analysis of programs, we're identifying what is our vision of this program at its best delivery rate, and what do we not want. And then there's an actual support star on the right side where we're looking at what are the different ways that relationships, community, technology, eligibility, and personal strengths all play into program development. So I think that's a really fun, kind of different way to use some of the tools that we think about. This is a slide from my personal budget development process and program development process. I have become a huge fan of the buckets. I spend a lot of time thinking about the buckets. So at this slide in my budget presentation, I went in and talked about how we supported families across these different areas, and then identified these gap areas where I felt like we needed to improve. Family knowledge needed to improve with our website being more easily worked through. Advocacy skills weren't quite what they needed to be so that families could move forward. So they really gave me a very clean, clear idea of how I could prioritize new activities for the future that I felt like we needed to bulk up on and put money behind that with our budget. I think I've got one more slide here. This is our most recent effort. We've been reimagining our children's services, and we've done our strategic plan as an agency using Charting the LifeCourse, which is very exciting. So this was a multi-step process where we brought in community members that were very engaged in supporting young children, and we helped them help us complete this vision for good lives for families that have children with IDD. And they talked about at the different life stages, not only what observably we would see in the children, but what observably we'd see with the parents and the caregivers. And then we applied our quality measures to planning forward with that. We used the 3 buckets from Charting the LifeCourse, and we crosswalked that with our accreditation tools from Council on Quality and Leadership, and the protective factors that we use in our parenting training through Parent Cafe. So that really gave us a really good map to walk through in that trajectory and start thinking about how do we give these families the information they need so that we're going to see those deliverables with parents and with their children. So those are just a few ways that as an agency, the St. Louis ARC has adopted the LifeCourse principles and the LifeCourse tools. As Angie said, it's in my mind constantly, and now I see that other people are also thinking that way because we're all developing this muscle for using the LifeCourse, and it's exciting to see where we're going to go. Thank you very much.
Absolutely, thank you. What a great overview. And obviously, I was teasing our panelists because I said each one of them could technically have all day and not tell you all of the really awesome things that they're doing. So I think that that's a really great examples for everybody to think about it from a programmatic level and look at the application and really see how it's changing your practices. So that's awesome. So I hope you guys have different questions and thoughts for Sharon later when we move into our question and answer time. Thanks, Sharon.
Thank you.
So the next group that I'd like to introduce you to is they're going to talk about how they're immersing Trying the Life course in all the aspects of their agency. And so I'm going to introduce you Kayla McCollum and Rebecca Auberry, who I'm going to now turn it over to. Oops, sorry, my mouse keeps moving our thing around. I apologize.
Oh, hello everyone. I'm Rebecca Auberry, and this is my peer, Kayla McCullum. We are both case management supervisors here at Connections. Our journey with LifeCourse began around 2016. We've went through a lot of trials and tribulations to implement it in our organization, but we developed this tip sheet that we'd like to go through. The first thing we want to tell people is you need to encourage people. You need to encourage people to create that buy-in. We were very fortunate that our executive board director had the immediate buy-in. She actually saw it first, brought it back, said, we're going to do this. So when you have that, unlike Sharon, when she had to go from the bottom up, we were able to come, we had the buy-in straight from the top. We took our first instance to introduce it to our organization. We had some issues that we encountered from our organization satisfaction survey. We wanted to figure out a way to improve those scores. So at a retreat, we developed big stars, and we had the case managers go around, fill in ways to meet that issue, and that way they could see how the stars were valuable to use for problem solving. Next thing we want to talk about is just try it. That's the biggest thing. People are scared of what they don't know. We never mandate anybody to do a type of tool here. But when we first introduced it to case managers, we did mandate them to try something to facilitate conversation. We had them come back to our big 10 meetings and share their experience, good or bad. What did they learn? And we were hoping as other people hear the successes, they may think, I can maybe try that. Next tip is to continue internal staff training on the framework. This is not a once and done training that you can do for your organization. It has to be something you incorporate a lot. At least monthly, we were incorporating something with LifeCourse, working on a different principle. We take different scenarios that may be made up, and we work them with LifeCourse principles and tools and try to figure out how to make things better. And like I said earlier, if people can see the success, see how it can work, they're more apt to try it. The next thing we do is we integrate it. We integrate it across everything that we do here at Connections. We have our core groups, we have committees, we have our strategic plan. Everything is organized through the lens of the LifeCourse. That helps everybody stay on the same page. Everybody knows what our steps are to get where we want to go based on our trajectories, based on our one-page profiles. We have all of our staff complete one-page profiles as well, which talks about training. So all of our staff that come on, we go through the LifeCourse training, whether it's our administrative staff, whether it's our case managers, or just our any staff that might be here that works here. Records people, everybody goes through LifeCourse training in the beginning. We want them to see that it can be used for everybody. We know that when people come on through our training, we have them complete tools on themselves, because until someone completes a tool on themselves and really can see how it can work, they may not understand it. So once we have them go through that, they have a better idea. They share their one-page profiles with their core group, with their supervisor, with their mentor, and vice versa. Incorporate. Design your intake process for new persons served as an introduction to the framework. We have an example later we'll show you of our rack card, where we have different rack cards that we've developed by life stage that kind of give just a simple overview. We went through different methods of that. We used to send a lot of information that we thought, okay, that's overwhelming families, they're not looking at it. We went through different questionnaires, that was still too much. So then we came to the rack card, and it just gives you a little bit of overview about that life stage and some questions to ask and to think about when you prepare for your initial meeting with your case manager.
So another thing that over time, when we build in Chart and LifeCourse into our internal processes, we're building that visual structure. So using the images for the domain within our ISP, or like Rebecca just mentioned, developing that RAC card for our intake, we are able to show that visual. So we've had families or we've had individuals that we serve say, hey, what does that mean? And so it's just another way to prompt that conversation and to guide our conversations, especially when individuals rely on those visual cues. And it also is just an organizational platform for the staff that are using it. We say attend, so participate in Chart and LifeCourse activities. Go to those tools meetings, those stakeholder meetings, and attend the annual showcase. We have gained ideas, and not everything that you're going to see there is going to be something you can bring back and use in the exact same way, but you might get an idea. It might prompt how you can use it, because everyone provides services differently. But the idea is, how can we share that? How can we best have best practices for implementing things and sharing it out? And again, it's not just following exactly, the tools. It's how do we brainstorm to use them in unique ways. So we network. That's the 9th tip that we have on here. Every time we go to a meeting where we're invited to a school to talk with students, we're on some transitional meetings to assist individuals, like transition age individuals with employment and higher educational opportunities. We're sharing Chart and the LifeCourse. We're sharing resources. We're sharing how to use the tools, and not just expands that conversation, but we're often working with the same individuals. And so then they're hearing it from more than one organization, and it's kind of enveloping them and surrounding them. And we're all on the same page at that point as well. And finally, we say celebrate. So like Rebecca had already mentioned, whenever you share a celebration in a team, it shows other people how you can be successful with Charting the LifeCourse. But we want to put it in everything. We want our board to know in the annual report that using Charting the LifeCourse helped with the success, because part of it is just thinking outside the box. You're going to have to brainstorm how to support people, whether or not you use Charting the LifeCourse, but Charting the LifeCourse provides a means to do that so that you can access opportunities and think in different ways to support individual outside of that green eligibility specific piece.
Okay, next. So this is what I wanted to show you. This is what our board gets every month. It's our connections, abilities, resources, who we support. So the very top, what I wanted to show is we include our all. So we have, you can't really see it on here, but we have who's unknown to us based on our population in Jasper County, who we support, who has residential, who has some services. We also, it is identified through life stage, so we know how many people we have in different life stages, and what types of services they receive.
And this is important because, our board director, like I said, she had buy-in from the beginning, but she wants to continue to report back to our board on what we're doing. And part of that is that visual schedule we mentioned, or that visual representation of Charting the LifeCourse, that we are viewing the individuals that we serve through that lens and through that framework. And they're able to see that as well ongoing, how productive and how helpful using that framework is.
Next.
So I created this pretty recently for our staff. We have staff that come in and we're trying to teach them all the things about being a case manager, or helping with, as an admin, or we have our outreach program. And we have a lot of terms that we use in general in the social work field that are confusing, but beyond that, we have things that are really specific to our office. So if you look in that bottom left, we have Cope Day and we have group mentioned, which are our monthly trainings. We just like to put fun names on things. Well, if someone starts referring to Groot, they're going to be like, what are you talking about, the Marvel character? And we're like, no, that's our monthly meeting. And it stands for something that I don't remember. But we create those, that language. And so this helps them know that language, or to understand what pieces of technology they're going to use, and also what eligibility systems they're going to be working with. So this is actually a form that we use to train incoming staff to help them kind of grasp all of that new terminology.
Oh, one back. Oh no, you can go next. Yeah. So this is just an example of our RAC card. Just wanted to show you that. This is the one that we use for transition to adulthood. Just has a little information and maybe one question under each of the life domains, just to get the families thinking. Next.
So we have 3 examples here. I'm not going to go into the big story of this. I just wanted to share how recently I attended an IEP meeting where there's a young child. He's going into 5th grade. I changed his name, so we're going to call him Bobby. And he wanted to share with this IEP team what was important to him, about school, what was difficult for him at school, and how to best support him. And mom and dad were able to refer to this, and I was able to refer to it at one point in the IEP meeting, because he didn't attend the whole thing, because sometimes this conversations can be difficult, but we want to make sure that every decision we're making for him is through the lens of what's important to him and how he says he needs to be supported. So this was just a recent example of something that worked really well using that one-page profile.
Next.
We also, this is a pretty standard tool, but I wanted to share an example. We had someone who was approached by the school to get guardianship for his daughter. We had an outreach specialist introduce them to this tool, go through it, and go through each of the life domains to determine what areas does she really need help with, what can she do independently, and what are some areas that maybe she really needs to enhance more with some training. And ultimately, he decided not to get guardianship because he felt like she could work on some of those areas, and it really gave him a comprehensive view of how to look at his daughter and to know how to help her continue that that path towards independence without becoming a decision maker for her in that legal capacity.
Next. Our last one is just an example. This is our 3 buckets. We did develop this in our team. It's our 3 buckets for Jasper County. We just wanted to show this our example. We had a case manager who worked with a family that the young man really needed some socialization opportunities. They were having a hard time thinking of anything. She picked this up and said, 4-H. Why didn't we think about 4-H? And so now he's participating in 4-H. And so when maybe she hadn't used the 3 buckets before, we might have only gave her options of maybe disability specific socialization groups. So just another way that you think about the options and you're like, should have thought about 4-H. So that is all for us. If you have any questions, you can let us know.
Awesome, Rebecca and Kayla. This was a really great overview and some really great examples and some questions that have popped up in our question and answer box that I will circle back to. So if you want to check those out while I'm moving on to Kim, and then I will open it up for others. So I hope you guys are getting your questions and ideas ready to ask our speakers. But before we do that, I want to turn it over to our last panel presenter who we thought it would be really great to, she has a ton of examples that she could share with us, but we thought it would be one of her most recent ones was how they utilized the trajectory tool to really think about COVID. So Kim, if you could pop on the screen and take over.
Thanks, Shelley. I'm Kim Buckman, and I'm with County Connections. We provide case management in Northeast Missouri. And when this pandemic hit, we didn't have measures in place for our staff to be able to work remotely. And so that was our first focus. We had to focus on the technology that we needed by purchasing Chromebooks and cell phones so they could provide services when and where needed throughout the pandemic. But once we tackled that first obstacle and identified that need and had that met, we wanted to make sure that staff were being prepared and supported in all the ways that they needed to be. So having LifeCourse in our thoughts and in all the practices that we do, it made sense for us to take a look at that through the trajectory. And so we sat down and identified what our vision was for our staff and for our agency through this pandemic. And once we identified what we wanted, we took some of the other concepts, such as the buckets, the 3 buckets that you've heard a lot about today, and the integrated supports. And so we wanted to make sure that we weren't just giving our staff goods and services, but that we were also giving them the peer support and the supervisor support and the communication that they needed. We wanted to ensure that we were also giving them the knowledge that they were staying up to date and current with all of the information that was rolling out so that they felt educated about the pandemic. And so we looked at those broad areas of the buckets and how we wanted to support our staff. And then we broke that down further into the integrated supports. Like I said, we had already focused on technology and how we were going to meet their needs through new systems, through new technology and equipment. But then we also wanted to focus on those connections and how we were maintaining those needs through our peers, through our coworkers, through the resources that we could use with those connections. And then obviously the strengths of our staff. We knew that some staff were going to be very successful being able to work remotely, and we knew that some staff would need extra support. Like someone talked about earlier, sharing examples of successes. We felt like having that open communication with our staff and letting them share their successes and letting them share things that they found that were working with each other, that they could learn from that. And then we also wanted to make sure we were focusing on those goods and services and what we could put in place, such as the PPE and the information that was coming out from our division, to make sure that folks stayed up to date. So we did that internally to focus on our staff. And one of the big reasons we did this was because we wanted them to have input in what was happening and what was going on. So from that, they identified some concerns. And one of those concerns for them was that we serve a lot of rural counties and communities. So there's a lot of travel time typically in our position. But they were really concerned about how the lack of that travel time would now impact the work that they're doing and their billing. And so our staff met and they developed their own trajectory, and they identified a vision of what they would want if they had a support coordinator. And then we were able to come up with ideas by life stage. So we identified different programs and opportunities and resources that we felt we could help people with by those different life stages. And that worked out well for some of our staff. That opened them up to be able to use their own strengths and their own creativity. And while they were being successful, we had others who needed a little bit more guidance. So from there, we then added onto that trajectory, and we came up with very specific ideas under each life domain. And so you can see that in all the planning that we do, we really combine, we start with maybe one concept and one tool of charting the life course, but we really combine the different principles and the practices to make sure that we're encompassing the all, whether that's through the 3 buckets and providing adequate support to our staff and to the individuals that we support, but also looking at the integrated supports and services and looking at the life stages and the life domains. And so that's really helped us to stay focused, to make sure that we are reaching out and doing everything that we need to do to make sure that our staff are successful and that they feel supported as well.
Kim, that's awesome. This is a great example of how you used it at a problem-solving level at the sort of staff level, and in response to a critical issue that you needed to work on. So we really appreciate you sharing that with us. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to bring our presenters back. Maybe. And I'm gonna start out by kind of asking them some questions. You know, I have the opportunity to interact with them a lot, and I really do mean it when I say I'm always amazed when I meet different people that have used Trying the Life course, or have told me different ways they've really seen it impact different people's lives. So the first question I want to ask you is like, each one of you have individually learned about LifeCourse, and then you've sort of started to incorporate it and just kind of do it in all the things that you do. So like, I go back and I imagine there's either people on the phone that are sort of new to it, or everybody on this call has to introduce somebody else to it. So like why? So if I was brand new and knew nothing about LifeCourse, like why? Like what is this? What is LifeCourse and why? So I'm gonna start with you, Sharon, and then I will make my way around the screen.
Okay, God, I'm glad I get to go first. Well, there's a couple whys for me. I think that one is that it's just super easy to use and appealing. I think that one of the things that first attracted me to the LifeCourse was that it appears so simple on the surface. Everything is very understandable, but you just keep peeling it away like an onion, and there's more and more that you can get into. And so for me, it's like such a perfect package of tools because it just keeps giving. I think that my original motivation, though, was really common language. Having spent 30 plus years in this field and working with families across different life stages, because we are an agency that serves people throughout their entire life, families constantly had to learn new language to advocate for their family members, and so did the people that had disabilities. They had to learn how we talked about things and what was this process, and this language in my mind. I guess I kept thinking this is the way for people to become strong advocates, because if they have these tools and the words to express themselves, they can take the lead, and they aren't going to stumble every time they switch environments.
Awesome. Okay, Angie, what's your sort of why and what?
So my personal original why, whenever we discovered charting a life course, was we were already using a lot of concepts very similar to this, and so it just gave a lot of validity to what we were already doing. And it wasn't something that just I came up with and Angie created in her basement and came and taught everybody. It was like something real and tangible, and we were on the right page. And we were using a lot of the same language already. And it just gave so much, I can't think of a better word than validity, just to what we were already doing. And it made it real, and it made it powerful. And then whenever we expand that to train, because we did a lot of staff trainings also at our agency, my partner and I did, to try to get it more introduced and use it with different teams of individuals. And it was just about that they would have a voice. It was all about a voice. And that we really felt like the adults we worked with struggled for their voice to be heard. And it's a lot different going in and then having someone say, hey, I want a job, than to have it very specifically what they want that job to look like. We made different things that said, like, I want a job where I stand up or sit down. I want a job where it's loud or quiet. I want and choices. We just talked about making choices, because when you haven't been asked, then you don't know how to make a choice. And so just breaking it down to those very concrete, just the basic principle of choice and how you make a choice, and that someone's going to listen to your choice and follow through with that. That was really like our bread and butter. That's really where we start every time, is about that. So just giving that voice and letting them know they have it, letting individuals know they have a voice. So
Awesome. Thank you. Rebecca and Kayla.
Hi, I'm mute first. My big why, I mean, I was told I was going to go to this event and learn about that. I had no idea what I was doing in the beginning about LifeCourse. I didn't know what it was. I guess the biggest thing that I learned, and these are not new questions, new things that we should be asking people. I mean, it's common sense really in a way to plan. And that's what really got me, was the planning. I really am a stickler, I think, as far as if you take time to develop that good life, and I tell you what my good life's going to be, I need to help you. I need you to help me see some action. I need to have some goals and outcomes. I need to be working on some of those things. And I think that's the biggest thing. People come in and talk to me about something. I'll say, well, is that getting them to the good life? And I know they're tired of me saying that, but I think it's really with the planning, because if you don't have that connection as far as what the person wants and how we're going to help them get what they want, which is really what case management is, that's what our job's supposed to be, it just makes that conversation so much easier. The tools with, just risk planning, different things, it just helps you facilitate conversations. There were a lot of times harder to have before. And that's what I think is the best thing about LifeCourse is asking the right questions, looking at the right things, and listening when you have a family's perspective and the person's perspective, and they have no idea they had different perspectives till you talked about it. I mean, it's amazing. So that's me.
So addressing Rebecca's, like, I'm going to go to this thing because I was told to. She was my supervisor at the time that we started Charting LifeCourse. So as a case manager, I don't know what the leadership is doing. I don't know that they're like, hey, we're trying this new thing out, we're going to bring it back. I was just told, like, this is what we're doing. And so I listened because I mean, this was the path we were going down. And, you know, with Rebecca being my supervisor at the time, she did ask me those questions. And it is that broken record that slowly changes the way that your brain thinks to ask the questions that, again, I already needed to ask, but I didn't know the best way to ask it. And for me, probably the biggest selling point for Charting the Life Course is the inclusivity piece. It's not just for people with disabilities. And so we serve the whole person. So I serve someone who's interested in all kinds of things, not just interested in things because of their disability. And I serve people who have co-occurring diagnoses. And so sometimes their mental health takes priority. And so I'm not just using the tools for their disability, I'm using it for the whole person. And so for me, you know, we've talked examples about case managers taking it home and using it with their own children. And I don't pull out a tool with my 4-year-old, but I certainly think in terms of the framework when I think about how to support her. And so for me, I'm all about inclusion. I serve people, I don't serve disabilities. And so for me, that's Charting the Life Course. And when we go to any of those network meetings I mentioned, we're going to things that cross paths with other situations, whether that's poverty or just, you know, different things going on. And so we're sharing the framework and the principles, not necessarily how it just works for the people we serve. So I think it's just that big picture view of how to plan for anybody in any situation that is really appealing to me.
Awesome. Kim?
Yeah, so I could totally agree with everything these ladies have said. I'm sitting here shaking my head because it lines up exactly with what I think too. But I'll be honest, when we first were introduced to this, we had selfish reasons for wanting to pursue Charting the Life Course and learn about Charting the Life Course, was because we wanted something to make our jobs a little bit easier. And to help us as case managers be able to be more efficient and more effective with what we were doing. And we went into it with that approach and then quickly learned that it was more about the conversations that we needed to have, and we needed to be better in how we approach things. And so these tools have just really helped us do that. They are universal. They are so easy to adapt. And so I think that simplicity and that common sense approach has really just what has drawn us to it. Myself, I'm a visual person, and so having those to be able to help me guide through my thinking and through processes, I think keeps us engaged in the Charting the Life Course and using it in all aspects of what we do.
That's awesome. Another question I want to ask, because I think this is important, and a number of things have come up in the question and answer, is so how do you stay engaged? Like, I've heard a number of you guys talk about you develop your own training, you stay connected to the Nexus, you also make sure other community members. So how do you stay current or up with? I know that we're constantly learning with LifeCourse. You are too, and sharing. So what's the best way for people on this call, or for them to then get their staff to also stay engaged? Do they just go to one training and they're done? Give them ideas of the stuff that have done that. So I'm going to go backwards again. So Kim, I'm going to start with you this time.
Yeah, you have got to fully immerse yourself in it. I mean, the first year or two, I don't know how many trainings I went to on Charting the Life Course, but every single time I walked away with a new idea and a new understanding of how to implement the principles and practices into what we do. And so just coming back and being that example for those others around you, like Sharon was talking about earlier, and just putting it into practice, and don't feel like you have to start on a grand level. It can be something very simple as far as conversations and how you have your own conversations with folks. But you just be engaged and constantly open yourself up to the opportunities that are available, because there are a lot of them. And so take full advantage of those.
Awesome, Kim. Thank you. Rebecca and Kayla?
Yeah, I'll piggyback off what Kim said. I think if there's any way you can attend the stakeholders meetings, or in Missouri, we have tools and action meetings. Anytime you go and you come away from it, you're rejuvenated. I'm able to take people with me to some meetings when we used to have them in person before COVID, and every person that I took with me came back, I'm ready for LifeCourse again. I'm ready for LifeCourse again. I think a big thing that we do too is sometimes in stakeholders meetings, we would do some type of activity or talk about a certain aspect of LifeCourse, whatever Shelley decided the agenda was going to be for that day. I would bring that back to our case managers, and we would kind of do the same type of activities and review what we had talked about. And so then again, just anytime we had created a made-up ISP when we were trying to work on something, a different issue, but then the next time I wanted to do a training, we took that same made-up ISP and I put something in the middle of the star and said, this person needs a new payee. How are you going to do it? And so it's just constantly doing different activities. Develop your own 3 buckets for your county. We did that in probably over maybe a couple months in a team meeting. We took people split and we took, they would say, okay, we're going to work on this age group and this discovery and navigation bucket. Give us all your ideas and we combined. And so the more you can do that and do those activities with staff, your staff, I think the more they're going to understand it and want to do it. But you've got, it can, like we said in our, it cannot be a once and done or it will not go anywhere. You have to really immerse your whole agency, immerse it in all your conversations, as Kim said, and then it just becomes second nature.
Awesome. Angie?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, Kayla.
No, it's okay.
Just along with what the other ladies are saying, and it's just the concept of community. I think keeping the Charting LifeCourse community and using that as a support to keep engaged. We use that in a number of different ways. Kansas was going to have like your tools in action, kind of mirror off that from Missouri. Of course, COVID's kind of put that behind with those community events. I think are just invaluable because someone new always comes, someone new is always inspired, someone new always asks a different question or brings a different idea. Like that is phenomenal. I know sometimes whenever, especially at this direct support level, it almost at first kind of seems like another thing to do. And I know that sometimes that's the feedback that we get a lot. So my partner and I we stopped just telling staff what to do, and we just started going and doing it with different teams around, worked with the individuals and just said, we're going to do it like this. And we kind of showed them hands-on. We were in a kind of different setting where it's an agency and they were all together, but we would just go and teach the different team. We would do it. We would lead it. And so we showed it, instead of like just teaching it on a PowerPoint, we showed how it applies. We showed how to apply to like real life situations in different levels of individuals. And that opened people's eyes more than anything, than any training really. They were like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. I had no idea it was like that. I had no idea you could say it like that, or you could start talking about being independent or start talking about making a choice, because we did this with a bunch of icons and chose between chocolate ice cream and vanilla ice cream, or cake or pie. We made these whole choice boards, which also gave a lot of great information, but people didn't know it was like that. And so once they saw that, and it was just us not telling them, we actually did it, and it was really powerful. So any opportunity to have individuals that Charting LifeCourse is affecting their life and have that directly shown to people that are learning it, I think that it re-inspires me, certainly. But they see it's real, and they see it can work. It's not just something you're learning about in a training. It's something that really applies, and that people's lives are improved because of it.
Thanks, Angie. Sharon?
Yeah, I think that using the principles and the tools are going to be automatically reinforcing, because you're going to get great results. So I think for me, it was more about building that thought process to think about using them all the time. So something that I do even now is to give myself visual cues, so that if I'm stuck, I look towards a resource in the LifeCourse to help me. I, for a long time, was all about the star, and I've got a star up on my wall that gives me cueing questions to remind me, have I thought about all of this? But I try and now look at across all of the different tools, because I might find my answer in the all or in the buckets. So it's important for me to think about that. And then I had I had some problems connecting with community initially because our stakeholders meeting is 4 hours away from where I live. So it was a lot of commitment to go over there. I didn't go for a long time, but eventually it seemed like I had to, that I needed to be there. And so I took that opportunity and made it justified my time by coming back, and I was able to partner with somebody from our special education area and with our case management system, and we formed our own stakeholders group on the eastern side of our state, and that has been a really great opportunity for relationship building and sharing resources. So we have people from multiple provider agencies, schools, case management, some families and some individuals that come together about every 3 months and talk about where we are, what we're doing individually, and then we have some projects that we've done as a group. We've been converting the binder of resources to be more specific to our region. So it's been a great process for us.
Great, thank you. All right, so we have about 5 more minutes, because then I want to, I'd like to end by we have an award that we want to share with everybody, an awardee and a story about that. But then I have some very specific opportunities that I'd like to share with you about Nexus. I see there's a number of questions about some of the tools and about PowerPoints and about different types of training. So I'll end with that. But before I let our panel go, you know, and not that this is going to be easily done, because we're going to have about 1 minute to do it, 1 to 2 minutes to do it. But, you know, can you give a concrete example of an impact at a person or a family level because you use LifeCourse? So think about that for a second. Sharon, I'll probably start with you.
I'm ready.
Okay.
I'm ready because I use it all the time. Actually, I'm going to tap a group that I was in this week that I wasn't in charge of, but we're doing planning forward groups with older parents who have adult children 40 and over to look at each life domain and think about what's happening. And one of the moms was talking about how her ideas had changed because her son had to monitor his blood sugar because of his diabetes, and she always thought that meant he would need 24-hour residential support. And by doing the work through the LifeCourse and looking around the integrated STAR, she learned a lot about how technology could support him. So that was really cool.
Awesome. Angie?
All right, I've got so many, but I'm also kind of gonna use those life domain sheets, because that really is awesome. When an individual that was doing her life domains and planning it out, she had also opened a folk rehab case recently, and as she was going through her life domains, we got to the healthy living. She quickly realized that she's diabetic as well, and she was having her testing and her medication delivered at the agency in the nurse's office. And she kind of had this aha moment of, that isn't going to work when I'm out in the community getting a job, working at a job. Like, what am I going to do? I can't come back and have that happen all day. When she thought about that, she said, I need to be independent with this, because that's how my job's going to be more successful if I can be independent, because there's not a nurse's office out in the community. It gave her the time to plan that. We broke that down on how she could be independent with her testing and her medication, got the nursing involved, had the doctor involved. It gave us some time, because oftentimes what would happen a lot with community jobs and things like that is no one thought about that until like the day you're leaving to go out on that first job experience. And then they're like, oops, what do we do now? There's testing and there's medication, now what? And that would throw everything off, and it would send them back to zero, and then it would be like, I can't do this, I can't have that. But because she went through those life domains and it broke down every area so specifically, she kind of came to that conclusion on her own, and it gave us time before that first job experience went out. So I think that she was successful, and she probably wouldn't have been if it had been handled in a different way.
Awesome. Thanks, Angie. Rebecca or Kayla?
So a couple of years ago, I just had a provider kind of venting to me about their frustration with us introducing certain LifeCourse tools and asking questions. And it was specifically for an individual who has a guardian and who had a lot of restrictions in place. And so his whole thing was, asking him what he wants isn't great because he has a guardian. He's never going to be able to do X, Y, and Z. And it was just not a fun, comfortable situation to be in. And I didn't work with that individual. He just was kind of in general saying, you guys are coming at us with a lot of these questions. And we're like, yeah, it's a new planning framework that we're trying to use because we do want to hear what he wants, even if we have to realistically say, this also has to go along with discussions with your guardian. And fast forward to a few years later, at this point in time, he has no restrictions on his plan and he has a job. And so I think to imagine a few years ago that, yeah, he was not in a place, I think, where a lot of us honestly were very hopeful because he just was struggling. And he would call all the time and say, when am I going to get this? And when am I going to get that? And my case manager said this. And, he realized over time he has to work it. He has to work it himself and he has to be responsible for the things that he needs to meet in order to meet his vision. And it was a big day. I remember the conversation. I remember the guy. And then when I got that email that said he had no restrictions in his plan, I immediately thought back to that initial conversation. So buy-in is important, but I wonder now, I kind of want to ask that guy at the what do you think now? He doesn't have any restrictions because we helped him plan with Charting LifeCourse. So
That's awesome. Great story. Thanks, Kayla. Kim?
So yeah, I have a lot of examples floating through my head, but one of them that I think is really impactful was a young man who turned 18 and was in school still. His parents were divorced. Dad and the school were both pushing for guardianship for the young man, but he very clearly did not want guardianship. And so his support coordinator was able to work through with him and really talk about what it was he wanted, what his vision was able to go through the newer version of the stoplight tool and really kind of identify where his true needs lay and help him advocate. And so he was able, through the court proceedings, they determined that he did not need guardianship and instead is utilizing supported decision making. So it was really cool to be able to just have something to help him lay out his voice in the conversation so it didn't get lost.
Very good. Awesome. And Angie and panelists, if you guys could go to the question and answer box, there's some questions for you guys. You could just kind of type those in as we kind of do a couple of things to wrap up. But, I've already told you guys I could talk to you guys for a week about this. And so I love these stories. I love the ideas. What you guys doing is, absolutely amazing. So thank you for your time. I know that, so they're not going away. They'll still be on here for the next 15 minutes. So if you have other questions, let us know. And this live session will be available as well. So if you guys can go ahead and shut your cameras off for just 1 second, don't go too far away, but and we will move on to the next section of our program as we start to kind of wrap up and do a couple different things. Right now, I would like to take the opportunity to during our showcase is a chance for us to really celebrate, and a number of the panelists were talking about connecting, and I think that for me with the Nexus, the most important thing for me is to create opportunities for you to learn from one another. Nobody has all the answers. There's no specific tool. There's no specific language for what we're trying to do to support a person to have a good life and for all to have a good life. And so it takes all of us for this sort of learning and this journey that we're on with LifeCourse and really with policy and practice changes. So we have innovation awards, and that's an opportunity for the Nexus to really highlight somebody that's been working either in the field, working with individuals or families, and even staying connected to the Nexus and really helping drive us and improve the things that we're doing as well. And so this each month we have a different award specific to a different kind of focus area. And this month we're focusing on an individual who is a champion for quality supports and services and has really been a champion for LifeCourse since the inception, and since it was really even the LifeCourse framework. They've been involved with the work at UMKC. And so I would like for Kim Buckman to turn her camera on. Kim Buckman is the recipient of our award. And Wendy is here. I'm not sure if she's on camera. If she can turn her camera on. She actually might not be on the panel.
She's in my
There
office.
she is.
And I looked at her, I said, did you know that?
Well, Kim kind of blew it for us, and now we're all kind of huddled around this little teeny tiny screen because she decided to work in her office in Shelbina today. So we had to kind of rethink how we were doing things. So I apologize for us being in this little tiny little hole here.
That's my fault.
But we're really proud of Kim and all her accomplishments, and we have been on this journey for almost since the beginning. I think probably 2013, 2014, and Kim has been such a force helping all of us stay on this journey, and we appreciate her and her vision. And thank you, UMKC, for starting this all. It's been wonderful. So, Kim,
Absolutely. Kim, thank you so much. So Kim, any
Thank
words?
you. I'm totally shocked and surprised. But no, I appreciate all the opportunities that you guys continue to give us to be a part of this process, and to allow us to grow as an agency and to be better and to do better. And so we truly full-heartedly believe in the charting the life course principles and the work that you guys do. And so just thank you for your all's partnership that has enabled us to be who we are and to do what we do. So thank you guys.
Awesome. Thank you, Kim, and congratulations. It's very well deserved. So just to kind of wrap up our last couple of minutes together, we appreciate your time and your focus. We hope you'll check out Quillo, our sponsor for this session, as well as a new one of our technology partners, which means that they have committed to working with the Nexus to really think about how to best integrate the LifeCourse in their application. The other thing is I want to share with you a few opportunities. If you haven't been to our new website, I highly suggest that you go there. There's a ton of information on there that hadn't been there before. If there's information on there, or if there's information missing that had been on there prior, can you please email us and let us know, because we were really trying hard to get everything updated on there, and sometimes we maybe didn't pull something over. All of these sessions are archived, both the live sessions and the Friday features. Check them out, share them on social media. As you know, we develop almost everything to be open source so that you can learn yourselves and you can share it with others. So if you want to put it on your website, or if you want to send it out in a newsletter, please feel free to do that with the information and tools that are and videos that are on our website. The other thing is that, COVID has given us an opportunity, so to speak, to get a little more organized. There's been a lot of demand around the country about how can I learn more in depth about LifeCourse. I've gone through a number of different things, but I'm ready to actually dig in deeper into both the principles, the tools, and specifically how to apply that either in your role or with your organization. So what we've done is what we're calling our Open Ambassador Series, which we're going to launch those every quarter. We're getting ready to launch some in October. So registration is available for these webinars, and we're focusing it on some specific roles. So if you are someone who does person-centered planning, or you're a person-centered mentor or trainer, we have sessions for you. There's 2 open sessions for anybody that does that role, and then there's one specifically for those that are involved with the learning community on person-centered planning. The next session that we have available that we're really excited about is is really looking at the no wrong door. So are you a navigator? Are you an information referral specialist? Do you do a lot of stuff at that sort of front door of services, whether it's aging, independent living centers, developmental disabilities, behavioral health? This is an opportunity for you to learn from other people around the country. How are they applying the life course at that problem solving stage, that sort of initial information referral stage, whether it's a 5-minute call or an hour-long navigation call? This is the series for you. We are very excited about the opportunity. We have a lot of direct support provider agencies who have been contacting us saying, how does this apply to DSP level? How does this apply at the QDDP level? What does this really look like? How can we implement it within our organization so we're ensuring that our day-to-day lives and our outcomes are improving? And so we have a session focused specifically for direct service providers that's starting in October as well. So those are some new open series. We will continue to offer open series every quarter now moving forward. And we're also looking at some other workshops. Some people are like, well, I'm not ready to go to an ambassador series. And so we're going to start hosting some skill building workshops for people to sign up and to attend. Some of you are on here and you've heard different people say, well, my organization hosted an ambassador series, or I went to this through the community of practice. There are some very specific opportunities. You can contact us at the Nexus and we can customize whatever your team, project, or organization wants. So maybe you want a training on a specific topic or for a certain staff or a certain meeting. You can contact us and let us know. We just need to know what you need help with to be able to give you the tools and resources so that you can integrate this in the work that you do. Again, I want to thank our sponsors. We really appreciate them, especially Quillo for this month, but all of our sponsors have made this possible. As you see, the poll is up, and I apologize for the spelling error on the first question, but if you could answer that poll, we'd really appreciate it. We hope that you'll check us out next month as we do this again live, or you attend and participate and check out our taped versions on our website. Again, thank you. If you have any questions, put them in the chat, give us a call, email us. We really appreciate your time. We know how busy everybody is. And I do see a question from Colleen that Angie, will have Angie answer, but there are COVID-specific resources on our website where different people have utilized LifeCourse for different reasons. So be sure to check that out. And again, can't wait till we can talk in person and appreciate your time. Is the survey, it popped up on my screen. Catherine, is the survey up there? Great, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Be in touch and have a great day.